Hello, everybody, and good evening. We're going to call our meeting to order, and if you don't mind, we would like to start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on our agenda is an opportunity for the board to hear from comments from the public or the press. Is there anyone here? And first of all, welcome. It's wonderful to see a crowd for our meeting. But is there anyone that would like to have some time to make a comment or anything of that nature before the board? Okay, hearing no clamoring for that, we'll move on our agenda. The first item that I have is we do have some actual bona fide board correspondence, folks. And basically, we've received our annual letter from BOCES Board President Roger Bennett for the call for nominations to the BOCES Board. Those nominations are due by March 20th. There are 3 positions that are available on the board. And in conjunction with that, the BOCES annual meeting and administrative budget review will be held on April 1st. And that will be I'll let you make that opinion known. On April 1st, and the component districts of the BOCES, including ours, will be meeting on Monday, April 20th, for our regular board meeting to vote on the administrative budget and the BOCES board nominees. All of the details regarding all of that are attached in the letter, or are in the letter that is attached to our agenda. And that's all I have as far as correspondence is concerned. So we'll move on now to information and reports, and the reason for you all being here tonight. We have some great student work that we want to recognize tonight, and I'll call on Superintendent Burke, Trustee Murphy, and Mr. Alan Oliver to handle those festivities for us.
As Mr. Oliver rises up and he'll be reading the names, Ms. Murphy will be handing out certificates. But before we do that, the awards that are being presented, and this is really for the public and for those folks that will be watching this later, we have over 30 of our students who received awards in art, which is an absolute amazing feat, not just of our students, but also of our art faculty. And the 3 categories are Gold Keys, which are awarded to work demonstrating the highest level of achievement in originality, personal voice, and technical skill. Approximately 5 to 7% of all the regional submissions are recognized with Gold Key awards, and those students advance on to the national competition. Silver Keys are awarded to distinguished work demonstrating achievement at the regional level. Approximately 7 to 10% of all regional submissions are recognized with Silver Key awards. And honorable mention awards are awarded to those that demonstrate creative potential. And approximately 10 to 15% of the regional submissions are recognized with that distinction. So again, it's a great honor to welcome our students and their families tonight as we present these awards. And again, we congratulate you. Mrs. Murphy.
Good evening, everybody. Congratulations again to all the artists, and I would be doing a poor job as a principal if I didn't take a nod and look at Miss Dashnaw and Mrs. Pennington Lee and Mr. Simpson out there. They all deserve a round of applause for all the work they do with these kids, too. All right, so moms and dads, I'm going to call the kids down one at a time. They're going to come up and they're going to get a certificate, and I'm going to point them over to that side of the stage, and we're going to end up with a big long line of artists, and we're going to take some pictures at the end. So when I say your name, come up front, and there's a couple of these kids that aren't here, so bear with us if we have a name and no person. First up is Rogue Bentley, and we start right off with one that's not here. Carly Bigness. Connor Butler. Amari Cisse. Enola Chrisman. Looks like no. Gabriel Coe. All right, guys, stop by Mrs. Murphy, and we're going to take a picture on the way by. Reese Fauché. Chelsea Frost. Chloe Gushaw. Sophia Gushla. Lillian Haggett. Collie Hammond. Michael Herrick. Cooper Kennedy. Lexus Kerr. Zaylee King. Maddie LaPrade. Annika McKinnon. Mila Matajic. Nevea Misha. Alana Miller. Mariah Mitchell Rockhill. Ava Smith. Christy Summers. Summer Thompson Garo. Emma Tayo. Kyrie Weber. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's Scholastic Art Award winners. And if you'll humor me, guys, why don't we get into one group in the middle, and could my art teachers come down and get in the middle of this picture as well? Parents, feel free to run up front and grab a picture if you'd like. That looks like about enough. Congratulations again to all this year's Scholastic winners. And by the way, kiddos and families, by all means, you're free to leave at this point. You don't need to stay for the rest of the board meeting.
Well, we'd love it if you did. We do have some cookies up here. Well, that was a lot better than an executive session. Okay, in the interest of expediency, we'll continue now going on to reports from board members, and we'll start with, I think there's a couple of stand-ins for Trustee LeBlanc with the Facilities Committee report.
Sorry. So the Facilities Committee met on January 26th. I'm going to roll through this fairly quickly. At the high school, we had a capital project update. We discussed the high school turf, talked about a J.W. Leary front office plan. We had an update regarding the elementary basketball backboard update with those issues. We toured and looked at the PSPK in the high school. We did a general building tour, and that was that. Facilities Committee met on February 23rd. At the junior high, again, capital project was discussed. They've done a page turn that day with design, what's the other D, Ron? DD, design, development.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And so this is a very in-depth look at the plans with regard to how it's going to be constructed, what will be constructed, and kind of the flow of that work. Let's see. We were shown some. We got to look at the outside wall of the pool. There was a request for some windows. We saw a canopy design for the new fitness center and entrance into that portion of the high school. There's some sanitary sewer line scoping that has to be done at the junior high. We saw a plan for that and where that was going to be prioritized. And we will be interviewing turf vendors on March 16th. Peter Clough was there from GYMO. He gave us an update on his side of things, and he really does have to deal with the phasing of the contract work and all those things as far as timing and what gets done when and things like that. So there was an in-depth discussion regarding that. We talked about a capital outlay project for 2027. I think we're going to stick with some asbestos abatement to remove some floor tiles to keep things basically contained. It's an easier project, and it's easier fit within that small window, small amount of money of $100,000. So you can take it as far as you need to go, and it gets that work done. Brief discussion about the water main break over by Nightingale around the high school Nightingale complex. We discussed a request from the Madison PTO. Then we toured the junior high and got a good look at the junior high. And that was, next meeting is March 30th at the Transportation Building.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Kevin.
You got it.
We'll move on to the Policy Committee report, and Mr. Monroe.
Okay, the Policy Committee met Tuesday of this week, 5 in Mr. Burke's office. Present were Mr. Burke, Trustees Beckstead, Hayes, Giroux, and myself, along with Mr. Reagan and Mr. Oliver. So the policies were reviewed are, they all are cohesive in some of the discussions that we had from the last meeting. 3 of those policies were review only. Policy 7410, which is extracurricular activities, 7420, which is sports and athletic program, and then 7423 student athletic eligibility code. Again, those are review. And then up for approval for first reading tonight is 7310 student conduct. And so we did review the three review-only policies. There were no recommended changes to those policies. However, we did discuss 7310, and a lot of it has to do with, this is the student conduct policy, and if you remember the last meeting, we talked about the athletic code of conduct and how that ties into the board policy. So one of the things we discovered, policy 7420 is actually a student athletic eligibility code, which states that districts should have a certifiable program that that addresses pretty much everything that's in our athletic code of conduct. So while it's not the athletic code of conduct per se, it's a policy that says that the district should have one in place. Now, with that said, we also agreed that we haven't had this in practice before, but we're going to implement an annual review of the athletic code of conduct every August. The committee thought that it'd be good, especially if we have new board members that come on, are aware of it, but also if anything changes down the pipeline, that we can make recommendations to the district administration as needed. So everything there is good. And let me see. There was also some discussion. So the High School Musical also has their own code of conduct that is very much in line with our athletic code of conduct. And then some of the other discussion that led was any of the extracurricular activities, such as any of the clubs. Those are really tied to our academic programs in the student code of conduct. So any issues within those would be handled by our administration for things that would be relative to the athletic code of conduct. So it seems to the committee that everything across the line is in par with the way it should be. All the checks and balances are there. Mr. Pareto, you'll be happy to know we did discuss 3220, use of therapy animals. However, before we give further update, we're seeking some legal advice on some wording and whatnot. So that'll come, future updates. So.
Microphone,
So you were talking about the alignment of the codes of conduct, and I had an issue with one of the things in the High School Musical conduct that it was something that I'd like to just point out. So
Okay.
on page 2, under tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs, under letter B,
Yep.
it says that any student involved, immediate removal from all current and future involvement in the musical theater club, including all activities related. I just feel like if a kid makes a mistake and they can prove that they're not going to make future mistakes, that banning them from all, I didn't see in the high school athletic code of conduct where you get in trouble for one sport that you can never play any other sports ever again or be involved with them. I just think that's too serious and too final. I would like it if the wording could be changed to, and possibly any future involvement in the musical theater, just so that if a kid makes a mistake or is involved with other kids who are making mistakes and by proximity they're implicated, that they would have at least some hope, especially if the musical theater is their thing, that they would be able to maybe work toward, like, let's say they're a freshman and in their senior year they want to try out for the play. You know, it seemed too final and too severe in my opinion. I just wondered how other people interpreted that.
Sure. Yeah, I think you make a good point. You know, it does read as will be subject to. So, again, this is not a board policy per se. This is Mr. Lincoln's code of conduct specifically to the high school. So I would probably say it's closer tied to our student code of conduct. Is that right, Mr. Burke, more than anything?
It is, and it certainly has been modeled upon, significantly the athletic code when you see a lot of the same language. And I think, Mrs. Murphy brings up some valid points. And having been on the other side of the aisle as a longtime coach, right, I think that what we're talking about here is if a student, if somebody's in the crew, that might be something different. I'm sure that, and I think, you pick up on the word subject to. It's not, I don't know, and I'd have to talk to Mr. Lincoln. There are different roles, and if somebody is in a lead role and they violate the contract and then all of a sudden they're out of the musical, that's a whole dynamic thing. It's a whole letdown for the entire group for that once in a year event. But let me take this back to Mr. Lincoln. Let me ask him, how many times. I think there's some other things that we should also know because of the rules that Mr. Lincoln has in place. How many times have we had violations where he's actually had to implement that? And I'm going to probably say it's been pretty successful, that he doesn't have to do that because students know right off the bat what the expectations are. But let me get information from him, and let me also ask if that does leave him with some subjectivity for future years.
And we're talking under policy. Mr. Lincoln won't be here forever. And so I would like to see some kind of continuity so that the next person who comes in will have this code of conduct and just to have some leeway and some back and forth, because there could be an instance where a kid does something stupid and it's a one-off thing, and I would hate to see them just banned outright, my opinion.
I'm not sure if I agree with your analogy, Ron, about who's in a lead role and if they make a mistake and have to suffer the consequences, because you could have a star player in any team that could be going to a playoff game or a sectional game, and they could get in that same instance and they'd have to be removed as well. And the show goes on. And I'm not sure if I agree with that analogy. It's just an analogy. It's just right. So. And as far as that, maybe that, I guess, policy of the musical or of Mr. Lincoln's should become a board policy for extracurriculars and make it all into that, where it is subject to our overview and it has a process for review and understanding and interpretation that takes away the discontinuity of the individual at that helm at the time, if they left. So I think it's important.
So I would just like to point out too, when we talk about the athletic code of conduct, the musical code of conduct, those are not policies. Mm-hmm. It's falling under the auspice of the code of conduct, which is what was shared in that policy committee update, that those are de facto regulations. So the board establishes the policies, and then it's the administration with the team that determines the way to implement those policies. The overall arching, and speaking with certainly Mr. Oliver and Mr. Reagan, they work well because they allow a lot of gray area. They allow them to know the students, not by name, not who their last name is, but what their situation is, and make the consequences adjust to what that child needs at that moment in time.
And that's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Is I think with just adding possibly any would just say that it's under the person's discretion, because he's asking for the student and the parent to sign this contract. Mm-hmm. So I just would not like to see, anyone get pinned down with language that just doesn't allow for any subjectivity.
I will take those concerns back to our musical director, and I'll report back.
Can we add, so we've got on the schedule to review the athletic code of conduct annually. Can we also add the regulation for the high school code of conduct annually too? We'll just review them in the same cycle possibly, or?
I'm sorry, did you say the high school musical code?
Yeah,
Yes.
high school musical code,
Yeah, I think we would put all of those together in August.
Okay.
Yep.
I did have a question regarding 7423, which was reviewed. Student athletic eligibility code. And under number 1, regarding good school and community citizenship, et cetera, athletics are a part of the total education process, yada, yada. The following philosophical principles will guide all athletes' conduct. A, to have respect and concern for the rights and feelings of others. How exactly is that interpreted? Whose feelings and which?
The base principles of sportsmanship, I would guess.
How would we know?
So
Yeah.
part of that would
It's-
fall under
it's-
these could be violations under DASA as well. But DASA has some limitations. So for example, if a student has demonstrated disrespectful behavior under any one of those classifications, somebody's weight, somebody's skin color, any of those things, right, that would certainly be part of that feelings. However, it shouldn't and can't just apply there. Last year at this time, some of the first students that we honored were from a sports team that demonstrated outstanding citizenship. But that can also go the other way. It could be a sports team that's on a trip, or it could be a bunch of students that are on a field trip in line at McDonald's and saying something inappropriate about the mom in front of them that has no relation to the school. That would be that part A. We want our students, when they're out and about with us, to be representing Massena with pride and dignity. So again, it wouldn't fall under DASA because it's not a student, but that's where that could come into play.
I don't like the language. It doesn't, it's not defined. I know you just defined it, but it's not defined
defined.
as it's written. So I don't like the language. It's arbitrary and capricious.
Kevin, what would you suggest?
Take it out.
Out? You
Take it out.
You wouldn't adjusting it at all?
No, I think,
So-
I think it's, all those things are covered under other things.
That's what I was going to ask.
It's all covered, so I don't think it needs to be there, because it doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, it's kind of spotlighted way up in the front, and rights are certain things that people have. They're determined under DASA. That's where those rights are determined that affect their feelings. Feelings are just feelings. I don't think they have a place there. They're definable, so to speak. That's what I mean, if it's not.
So do you think B does enough by itself without A in there?
A's
covers
A's
it?
fine if you take out feelings, and then B covers the rest.
Yeah. Feelings are hard to define.
Yeah, it's pretty wide open.
Or what if you substituted, instead of have respect and concern for the dignity of others?
I think Kevin's point of just taking out the word feelings, it still covers everything, and it's, rights of others.
Takes away the ambiguity
Yeah,
of the
feelings
word.
are hard to define. Did you hurt somebody's feelings?
Somebody lost, and they're going to be upset.
So-
But, we still won. That's what we're intending to do.
So I
It's a
think it's simple.
meritocracy, sports, so.
Okay.
I guess that's where I kind of go back to the sportsmanship side. Could we replace that with a line about sportsmanship?
Sure.
To show respect and sportsmanship. Something along those lines, or even just include that in B and remove A.
The only thing on that would be that this isn't just about during a practice or during a sporting event. So if you limit it to sportsmanship, that doesn't allow us to address conduct outside of the athletic event.
Outside, yeah.
It probably, I think what Kevin has suggested, removing the word feelings,
Yep.
would still leave us with more than adequate coverage.
So what's the protocol for, this was recommended as a review only. We're now making a change. So it would would we just move it to a first reading with the recommended change?
I think that's the
If it just
safest
goes-
way.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I mean, it's not like a difficult edit if it goes back to committee. It's gonna take up a lot of time, but it's pretty.
Or
Yeah.
we could table it and send it back to the policy committee, either way?
Yeah, I think you have a couple of options. You could simply consider this instead of a review, change it to the first read, make the second read the next month. I mean, this is not pressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the board always has that right to make an amendment and just do it in the one read. You do have that right by policy, so you could say tonight, we vote to remove the word feelings and be done. If the 8 of you are comfortable doing that this evening, there's nothing that prohibits you from that.
That we remove the word feelings from letter A under number 1.
We'll wait until recommended actions
Okay.
to take care of all
Thanks.
that. But if people are amenable to that solution, we can get that done today. And have the policy committee move on to a different policy to look at next time.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
All set?
Yep.
Any further questions for Zach? Okay, we will move on now to the legislative breakfast, which was a couple of weeks ago in Lake Placid, and Mrs. Murphy will tell us a little about that.
Sure. So, Ashley, did we give them the packets? Yeah. So what I did was I asked Ashley to make copies of the packets that came inside the folders from that event. And in there, she also made a copy of this. This was a postcard that was sent to me by Dan Seck. And I'll talk a little bit about what that says if you're interested. But there's school aid overview and the executive budget, et cetera, et cetera. So the two people that I felt were most succinct in what they were saying and responding to the people who came up to the podium. So at this forum, anyone can come up to the podium, board members, superintendents, and we did have actually a couple of ex officios come up to the podium. So Dan Seck said that affordability is the new buzzword, and of these, energy was what he thought was the most pertinent. And the postcard that I held up is Dan's effort to pause or repeal the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act of 2019. So what happened was, since this CLCPA, which is the acronym, energy prices have included increased taxes and fees linked to the Green New Deal and climate change regulations. And Mr. Cashman also talked about this, how in 2019, due to climate and the Green New Deal, there was a lot of megawatt reduction. And what happened was they took away natural gas and some other forms of energy in favor of wind and solar. And now your energy costs, the bills represent 1/3 of that bill, of your average energy bill, is going to fees and taxes and this Clean New Deal. So Dan has proposed this petition to the governor and the state legislatures, and if you want to, you can sign that petition and then it has the web address, which is stecnewyorksenate.gov. So if you're interested in that, that's something that he talked about. There was also a lot of talk about electric buses, and a couple of things that Dan said were they cannot be undercoated to prolong life like we can the diesel buses. And he also said that the waiver qualifier to be exempt from the phase-in mandate is not as accessible as the New York State Congress realizes. He also, during the course of our conversation, noted that he had visited the Mohawk School after the boxes incident in November. Michael Cashman actually represents the 115th Assembly District. He lives in Plattsburgh. He also talked about electric buses and made mention that 70% of the state bridges cannot handle the weight of EV buses. His opinion was that it should be up to the individual districts if they would like to change over to electric buses. In his words, if they want it, go for it. Regarding special education, the rural northern New York districts have unique needs, which he is aware of. Also, there was talk about UPK quotas, the arbitrariness, and that if they set class maxes, that what happens if you get one additional student, you would have to make a whole new section for that student, which of course is another unfunded mandate. As far as energy, Mr. Cashman believes that we need natural gas and nuclear, but to even go to nuclear, that's a 15-year out, even if the site has been approved. So it takes a long time to get that online. And as I said, in 2019, New York State removed 4,300 megawatts in fuel to pursue solar and wind, and at best only created 2,300 megawatts, and we've never replaced the other 2,000 megawatts, while demand has increased greatly and will continue to increase with AI. The result is straining markets and increased costs for consumers. He also talked about healthcare costs, and we talked about the premiums are approximately $36,000 plus for family plan, with the addition of different drugs that are now covered by insurance, that we're talking about $2 million increases and climbing. Mr. Cashman is in favor of home rule state, which is less regulations and gives more freedom to govern locally. Both the legislators, in my opinion, were very vocal and informed and sympathetic to the needs of the North Country school district's specific and unique needs. The problem is the conservative state legislators, those who understand our rural values and challenges, are the minority among their peers. So the challenge is to build coalitions and support. There were individual districts that came up to the podium and raised different concerns, special education, the drop in state aid, the foundation formula, UPK. There was also talk about land value formulas and assessments, especially in the smaller school districts. The two ex officios who spoke, their concerns were that the regents' exams were not aligned to what was covered in classes and should be more aligned with curriculum. And the example they gave was the life science regents. Apparently it was not aligned. And they spoke about BOCES and said that we need more ability to have hands-on learning, and CTE, we need more CTE, was their ask in what they wanted to see. And if Mr. Burke has anything else, I thought it was a very good legislative breakfast, and like I said, I think that the ones who showed up really do understand our plight. I think it's just, how do we get to making other people in the legislature aware and concerned about our particular needs in rural New York?
Okay, thank you very much, Trish. We appreciate all of that insight. And there we go. We'll move on to my report, which is going to be very brief. Tomorrow, there's another opportunity to meet with several state representatives, assembly people, and senators. Senator Walczyk, Assemblyman Gray, Senator Steck, and a representative from Assemblyman Blankenbush's office will be at BOCES tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I believe Trish is going, I'm going, and Mr. Burke is going to be attending as well. It's fairly similar to the NYSBA-sponsored breakfast, but a little bit less formal, I believe. But hopefully some more good information will come out of that, and there'll be more opportunities for local education leaders to find out more about the state budget situation and to make their views and their requests of our state legislators known. So that's tomorrow. And with that, we'll move on to reports from administration, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Burke.
So the first item that I have is to introduce our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Nicole Flynn, who will be presenting on our mid-year goals.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. I'll wait till it's displayed here, and we'll get started. Okay, so we give beginning, middle, and end of year district goal updates. The middle of the year is always a little bit difficult just because some of our goals, we don't have data until the end of the year. So we substitute some things in that can kind of give us indicators, if you will, to our goals. So I will explain that, but please ask questions as we go through. So the second slide is just our visual. These are posted throughout our school district of our ABC district goals. A, attendance. We are looking to decrease chronic absenteeism. B, benchmarks. We're looking to increase the proficiency of our 3 through 8 testing, as well as our New York State regions. And C is our climate and culture, where we survey staff, students, and family members. Both of those in the presentation are hyperlinked, so you can look at the data that I had shared for the end of year just for reference. So daily attendance is not our district goal. Our district goal is chronic absenteeism. However, I did want to share this, just a celebration of our district. Throughout our district, our average daily attendance is 93%. So that means every single day, 93% of our students are here. And we're really proud of that. We've slowly increased over the last few years. So that's a thank you to our students, their families, our staff for getting them here. It takes everyone. The next slide I had put in last year. It was a newly published article on chronic absenteeism in our nation. I left it in there just as a reminder that chronic absenteeism is not just unique to Massena. This is across our entire nation. They contribute it to COVID, students being out of school and then returning to school and getting back into those habits. So it's kind of a good reminder. New York State, you can see, is kind of right in the middle there from the 22-23 school year, and that was the last time that data was published. So the next slide shows our elementary chronic absenteeism. Our goal this school year, by the end of the school year, is to be at 21%. You can see here it's gone the opposite way. We're at 24.5%. I will explain a little bit about that. In September, October, and November, we were meeting our goals. December, sick season happened in our elementary schools, and they really felt it. Whether it was COVID or influenza, our attendance rates dropped in the elementary schools. The other thing is there are different reports that get reported to New York State. One is called, they're numbered, the 107. That's what gets reported to the state when it comes to our chronic absenteeism. So the September to June numbers you see there, 23, 24, 24, 25, are past data. That came from the report 107. Unfortunately, for some reason, it's not available yet, so I had to use a different report, the 361, and that just tends to be a little bit different. So I actually think this 24.5 is a little bit higher than we actually are. So just it's a reference point, but I'm hoping by the end of the year we have the correct report in play. The big celebration is our next slide, though. At the secondary level, we are hoping to be at 29% chronic absenteeism or lower, and we are far surpassing that. We've had a 6% decrease, and we are currently at 26.5 in our junior high and high school. And this is a lot of different efforts, but the next slide really shows our communication with families. As you know, we started using Parent Square 2 years ago as our hub of communication, whether we're posting, we're sending newsletters, but this number alone, 92,539 direct messages. That means our staff messaging families directly about their students. And below that, you can see the interaction of those families as well. So 1,412 sent direct messages from our families. So it's showing that communication is increasing, that's making a difference. And as we've talked about before, our efforts are really focused on those yellow level 2 students when it comes to chronic absenteeism. So we are reviewing those reports every single month. Our admin team, we share them with our counseling team, our social workers, and they're talking with the staff and then reaching out to families. Yeah, jump in.
Are these numbers for this school year only, or is that since we started using Parent Square?
No, this is this school year only, yes. Yep, July 1 it starts new. Pretty impressive. That's a pretty high number in 1 year, half a year. So B benchmarks, this again, we have not had 3 through 8 assessments or the regions yet. I've put the dates there for you. However, linked in this slide, the 24, 25, I know it's not mid-year data, but recently the New York State report card posted our data, so it is there for you to review. I won't go into detail, but what you'll notice is we are usually equal to or surpassing New York State averages. If we fall below New York State average, it's usually only by 1 or 2%, and they're broken down by subject areas, so you can take a look at that. And as a reminder, just from our end of year overview of our data, we typically are ranked 3rd in the 18 school districts. So it just gives you a comparison to our region as well. So because we don't have those end of year scores, we use iReady for our benchmark assessment. We do beginning, middle, and end of school year. And what we pull for the comparison is called a projection report. It's basically saying this student got this score on their iReady benchmark. We project that they'll get a level 3 or 4 proficient on the 3 through 8 assessment. It's a hypothetical, but based on the range of their score, this is what they think they will get on the 3 through 8 assessment. So our goal by the end of the school year for the 3 through 8 ELA is 49%. You'll see this report, it breaks it down by grade level, which is really nice. What's interesting here with the ELA and math is you'll notice our grade 5 and 6, they just tend to be a little bit lower. And that was our pre-K kindergarten group in COVID. So just their data does seem to be lower, something we're keeping an eye on. Our overall proficiency range, our average is 45.5%, which is lower than we want to be by the end of the school year. We're not too worried about that. When we first started iReady in this district years ago, there was a certain number of minutes that they wanted kids on the Chromebook. You had to get that rote practice with the program. And we've kind of stepped back a little bit from that. We want kids with teachers and small group instruction. We have a new math program that comes with a separate online program called Waggle. So kids just necessarily aren't on iReady as much as they used to be, so their lower scores could be contributed to that as well. The next slide is the same thing with iReady, it's just our math. Our goal is to be at 61% proficient by the end of the school year, and our average was 55.8%. Again, it's broken down by grade level, and you can see that grade 5-6 bubble is just a little lower than the others.
And again, these are projected proficiency numbers, not actual.
Correct, yes. We get actual benchmark scores. It's a scaled score. It gives you a grade level equivalency, and then we use that during our RTI or AIS modeling. But overall, this is kind of saying, yes, we think you're going to get that on the state assessment. They're not actual scores. The next slide, we obviously do not have Regent scores, but this is just a reminder. I know we've talked about this before, but the transitions of our Regents assessments. And so some of the Regents are phasing out and newer ones are phasing in. There's overlap of certain assessments, but we are basically running that timeline. They had a 3-year transition period, and we're coming to the end of that. So we're seeing these new Regents come into play. And our goal at the end of the school year is to have 74% proficient over the 25-26 school year. The next slide talks about our C goal, climate and culture. So this survey it's a little bit of a roller coaster. In the past, we had a company called PLC who ran our climate survey across the region. The climate survey comes from a result of McKinney-Vento funding. McKinney-Vento is our homeless students. And then they changed companies to Ed Elements, which had somewhat different questions. They had the same yellow, red, green scoring, but they had different language. And because of our district goals, we decided to keep the language the same. Assets really means, what are you doing well? Those are your numbers in green. Your risks are your yellows and reds. Those are the things, what do we want to improve on, or what do we want to keep an eye on to improve on? So although we don't have a climate survey, though that's given every spring, BOCES is actually creating, they decided not to go with PLC or Ed Elements, they're actually creating their own. So we are waiting that survey, and once we receive that, then we will administer it to our staff, students, and families. In the meantime, we take a look at our suspension data as well as our SSEC data. I'll talk a little bit more what that is. So our elementary level suspensions, our in-school suspensions, you can see there's not a whole lot of change. In our out-of-school suspension, you can see an increase at the elementary level. And when we dug down deeper into that data, majority of those out-of-school suspensions are from one school, and one student has majority of those. And that student is on, is going through the process of possibly going to an 811 program. So it's a student that, behavior plan, modified day, all hands on deck, but that is why we see that number increase. The secondary level suspensions have decreased, and we, as a staff, the 712 staff for the past 3 years have been working with Kelvin Oliver. His company is Leaving the Village, and he focuses on alternatives to suspension. So the junior high and high school now have a re-entry plan for students, and high school is implementing structured day as well, meaning a student returns to school and they are walked to their class, so they are part of the instruction, part of the learning, and then they are picked up at that class and brought to the next class, so they are being monitored during those transition times. So they've seen that great success with that. The next slide is the SSEC. This is something that we have to report annually. SSEC is an acronym for School Safety and Educational Climate. It's basically the way that New York State ensures safety of all of their schools. And there's different categories, and so a few times a year we pull this data, take a look at where are we, and I think the biggest celebration here is if you look at the secondary level, the drugs that were being reported 3 years ago compared to now, we've seen a decrease in that usage. So overall, our numbers are very low with SSEC reports, and that is obviously a good thing. The non-instructional goal with Mr. Burke is designing the phase for the capital project. We've been meeting with stakeholder groups, meeting with the architect, and going over designs, going over budgets, and so that is ongoing with the facilities committee. Would you like to add anything to that?
No, in fact, I think we're a couple of weeks ahead of schedule. We're actually thinking now we may be able to break ground sooner rather than later, perhaps as early as 12 months from now to break ground, which would be great as we talk about. So anyone who's watching, I certainly want all of our swimmers to know that that's now becoming a target for us, is to try to get into the pool area maybe as soon as next February, with the hope that we might be lucky enough to get that pool done in time for the next swim season and not have to find an alternative location. So things are moving along quite quickly.
And that is the mid-year update. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up under my report is there is a bus utilization request, and I apologize, this is a retroactive one. It's from PAL. It was for a trip to Cheel to watch a women's hockey game on Friday, February 13th, the day before break. The Transportation Department is requesting the ability to declare surplus a number of items. We have an old DVR system that was on our buses, a couple of lift pumps, bumper jack, a drill press, a welder, and a bus washing machine. And a bus washing machine is exactly what it sounds like. It's about a 10-foot tall scrubber that you run along the side of a bus to clean it, which we have not been able to use since it was purchased many years ago because we don't have the space for it. So it is surplus. The next item is a donation to the music department of a trombone case and a student model trumpet. So again, community members really stepping forward. I would also ask for the district or for the board's permission to enter into an agreement with the Oswego County BOCES, commonly known as City BOCES, for the joint water testing and sampling. We annually have to do our lead in the water testing, and this would allow us to piggyback into that cooperative bid. We've done it in the past with good success. Any questions on those items before I go to my last one? Okay, my last item. With our wonderfully long and difficult winter, we are now down to 2 snow days with, unfortunately, a lot of winter ahead of us. Under New York State regulations, we must be in session for 180 days. 176 of those days are to be instructional days. We also have to meet minimum thresholds in terms of hours of instruction of 900 for the secondary level, 990 for the elementary. With so much winter left, I am getting increasingly worried about what will happen. By law, what has to happen is if we exhaust all of our snow days and we need to take another emergency closure day, we must utilize any vacation days that remain. So in this case, we're about 5 weeks away from spring break. If we need to use a 3rd snow day, that means that we will then have to tell students and staff that they would need to be here in some capacity for 1 day to make that up during spring break, or multiple days. Basically, if we get past spring break and we go beyond those 2 snow days, then it's a waiver to the state education department that due to circumstances that are out of our control, we had to close days and we had no emergency days left. Could be for weather. It could also be for a water main break, which would close the school. So if we can get to spring break, we're okay. It's from now until then. So to help alleviate that, one item that we will implement is a 3-hour delay. Especially as we get closer to the ice season, a 3-hour delay will buy me the amount of time I need to help get the roads cleared and that it would be able to produce the right conditions to bring our students in. Any delay is a major hassle for many of our families. What we will do in these cases, looking at the weather, I will do my best not to announce a delay the night before. I don't like doing that because the weather is unpredictable. However, if it looks like a 3-hour delay might happen, the night before, it will be announced that if we do a delay tomorrow, it will be a 3-hour delay. That gives families a little bit of time to make the arrangements that they need to make. So we will be implementing a 3-hour delay. The other request that I have, of the board is to give authority to me to amend our schedule. If next Friday we still have 2 days, we won't be doing this. However, if I need a snow day between now and next Friday, and that leaves us with 1, I'm out of my comfort zone, to be quite honest. So what I'll be asking to do is to convert our March 13th professional development day to an instructional day, a full day with our students. That'll keep us on track to get a full 176 days. To get that 180th day, the state of New York does allow remote, and it can be remote instruction, it can be remote professional development. It can be a combination of the 2. So what I would ask to do is to make that 180th day an asynchronous, remote professional development day for all of our staff to get us to that 180th day. What we would do is we would open up our portal for training sometime the week prior to spring break, and it would close most likely the Friday of spring break, April 10th, so that our staff would have to complete the required number of hours of professional learning, which would be remote. We would have to have verification of that, which it would be automatic through the portal, and that would count as that 180th day. What I don't want to do, if I'm weighing remote instruction versus remote PD, it's a no-brainer. There is no value for our kids with remote instruction. We saw it during COVID. As a district, I would like to lead a district that says, we don't want remote instruction if we can avoid it. We'll go for the lesser of the 2 evils, remote professional development. I trust the staff that when they completed it and they've earned their certificate for those sessions, it will have been done. There will be at least some value in that. Again, it's the lesser of 2 evils. And again, all I'm seeking tonight is the board's authority is sometime, it'll be next Friday, Nicole and I'll sit down. Nope, we don't need it. Yes, we do. And we'll get that out. If I have the board's authority this evening to do that, I will send a memo out for both of these things, giving our community and our faculty staff ample opportunity to think about this, how that's going to work. Before all of this, we brought in the union leadership from all 3 unions. We talked about these options, and this was unanimous. This is what our staff is encouraging us to do. I will most likely be coming back to you in April to talk about next year's calendar and how we would like to possibly amend next year's calendar. We have a 2-week break at Christmas, and that's a very unusual thing, especially with the Christmas day being on a Friday. I believe I'll be coming back to the board and asking you to allow us to make Monday and Tuesday instructional days, which would then build in 7 full snow days. The union leaderships were also all supportive of me bringing that back to the board. But again, I want to get one thing done at a time, and let's see how that works. And I'm sure I'll be coming back to you. Questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burke. The next item on our agenda is anticipated executive session. We have, of course, our regular personnel actions to approve later on. We also have an MOA approval potentially and a contract approval. So if anyone has any questions about those that you would like to discuss in executive session, we can do that now. Or if there are no questions, we'll simply move on to the next item. Okay, hearing no questions, we'll move on to recommended actions. First is the consent agenda. And earlier in our meeting, we had discussion about the review of policy number 7420, sports and athletic program. Or no, that was the eligibility code. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. 7423. I would entertain a motion to remove. I'm trying to figure out how we decided we were going to do this. I would entertain a motion to does anyone want to request moving that particular policy to out of the consent agenda?
So can we make an amendment, or do we have to remove it
When we get
first?
to it in the other items for action, we can.
Okay, then so moved.
Second.
Well, we don't even need a second. We just need a note from someone on the board that they would like to move that from the consent agenda to other items for action. So we'll move on, and I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 7423 student athletic eligibility code policy. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the consent agenda? Any opposed? That carries. And we'll move on now to other items for action. And let's start with that policy, 7423. We have a few options. We can send it back to committee, or we can decide to remove the word feelings from that section of the policy and elect to approve the policy without needing a second reading.
I would like to move that we make the amendment and then just move it along instead of sending it back to committee.
Is everybody clear on what Trish is motioning?
So don't just remove feeling, remove and feelings. The two words, of course.
Right, yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we, any questions or comments? All in favor of approving policy 7423? Any noes? Okay, that carries. Moving on, approval of the bus utilization request from PAL.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Approval of surplus items.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Approval of the donation to the music department.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Next is the approval for the superintendent to amend potentially the 25-26 calendar.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Okay. Next is the resolution authorizing participation in the Oswego County BOCES Cooperative Purchasing Program for water testing.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Okay. Next is the approval of an MOA with the MFT.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Okay. Next is the approval of a new contract with the MBAA.
I have a question about that contract. I just need a little clarification. So on page 14, it says with an asterisk, longevity step added to total base salary, but it never delineates what the longevity step includes.
Okay, so that is not a change from the prior contract, and you said, I'm sorry, it's on page 14?
Is it delineated in the rest of the body of the contract? Because I didn't see it.
Okay. Let me go back here. Trish, I know it is in here somewhere, and Mrs. Flynn, I know you worked under it. Is it $2,000?
And that was my second question, is how long do they have to be an employee of Massena Central School District before they are eligible for a longevity step?
Okay. Trish, I'm apologizing. I'm not finding it right away.
So on page,
Found it.
yeah, right above the, well, I'm looking at the old contract, it's right above the signatures. It says members will receive 2,000 longevity added to the base salary at the start of the fiscal year in which the member will reach 12 years of service to the district as a member of the MBAA.
Thank you.
Still,
Thank you.
it's insane.
Yep, you're right.
Question answered? Okay. Any other questions? Comments? We have a motion and a second on the MBAA contract.
I interrupted before there was a second.
Oh,
Second.
thank you.
There, how's that?
Do we have any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Let's get rid of that, please. Okay. Next is a resolution for administrative leave.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Burke for personnel action items.
Mr. Haggett, I recommend approval of action items listed as numbers 1 through 75. And I'm going to also do the addendum at the same time. And I will also recommend items 76 through 81 as listed on the addendum.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Any questions or comments?
Should we make a determination about my daughter in there that it's not a teaching position if it doesn't apply to the policy, just like that?
You're welcome to make that.
I can do that if you'd like.
Thank you.
To save
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so number 68, we have Mr. Peretta's daughter. However, by board policy, he would have to abstain if this was for a regular appointment. This is for a substitute position as a long-term, so that would not qualify under that policy. So Mr. Peretta is able to vote.
Just so there's no, yeah.
Okay, do we have any further questions or comments? All in favor of the personnel actions? Any opposed? All right. And excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have one other item, and that is a resolution for a sick leave allowance for an employee who is returning to our district to bring back and carry forth this personal leave day or the leave time that that individual had prior to departure.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? All right. That wraps up our business for the evening, and we can move on now to new business. And do we have any items that board members would like to have placed on a future agenda?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim.
I'd like to see us look into something with the coaches and the volunteers. Like, how many does a team need? And what's the process of interviewing these people other than somebody coming to Gavin and say, I got a volunteer that wants to help me out for my team? I just think we're getting to the point where these teams are getting, some of them are getting 3 or 4 volunteers. Do we know what their qualifications are other than the coach coming and saying, I mean, do they sit down and talk to anybody? I mean, this has been an issue that I've thought of in the past too. I think there needs to be some way of doing things. We interview coaches and make sure we're just going by, coach comes to us and said, hey, I want Kevin to be a volunteer for me and basically do the stuff we're supposed to do, you know, get fingerprinted and all that. But other than that, I don't think there's a lot done. I just think, how many do we need? There should be something that says, hey, you know, the football team does need more than others, but do we need 4 volunteers for a softball team? I'm not saying that's what it is, but we've got to control the numbers of who comes on and where it is. I just think it becomes an issue that somebody just wants to do it for a period of time. I really think we need to look into that. It can be a problem.
Let me get what the process is that Mr. Reagan uses before he makes those recommendations. And
Okay.
I'll have him write up.
Yeah,
some notes on
just
that.
to bring that to us on what he uses other than, you know, the coach comes and says, I have someone that wants to volunteer.
Oh. So I know that Trustee Peretta and I were the people who were pushing for the survey for our seniors and doing some things different in recognition of our seniors. And we used LifeTrack, which we contracted, and pay an annual fee. And I'm wondering if we should have an ad hoc committee and explore whether we want to continue with LifeTrack and we think that it's a valuable service, or whether we would like to do something ourselves, or maybe look at some other possibilities. There's some concern about how many students are actually taking the survey and then providing an email address, a personal email to follow up at the 18-year mark, or 18-month mark, and then beyond that. So I feel like it's something that we need to do in conjunction with the graduation to figure out where we are and what we should do going forward.
Okay.
I would fully support that. Quite frankly, LifeTrack it's great for the students that are leaving, but we can get that information in multiple different ways and maybe a little bit more creatively. We liked LifeTrack because it had that postgraduate component of it at 18 months and at 5 years. However, that relies on graduates giving their information. A lot of our students don't have their own personal email that they have and that will share. They're not willing to share their addresses. They're not willing to share their parents. LifeTrack's asking us, oh, just give us the parents and we'll reach out to the parents. No, that's not going, that violates a lot of my ethics, and I think it should concern any of us that we would give that information out. So I think I think at least Trustee Peretta and Trustee Murphy have talked before about how do we engage our alumni in any type of way. I think that might be a better opportunity, is to be creative of how do we reach out to the alumni to really get their sense, but make it in a meaningful way, as opposed to talking to 17 and 18-year-olds about, oh, give us your personal information so we can hound you for the next 5 years, as they are trying to escape in some cases, right? So I do think there's a better way that we can do that.
Also, it kind of was eye-opening when I went to the Hall of Fame. That was really well attended, and I think part of that was because the student athletes were very engaged with their coaches. Like, they made real bonds and connections, so that when they found out that the coach was going to be there and to recognize the team for the Hall of Fame, I felt like there was a good turnout. And so I'm thinking, how can, as Mr. Burke said, what we want to do is engage our alumni. Like, that was our whole goal, and to see how we were doing as far as students feeling like they were ready for either career or college or whatever their next move was. So I just think that the questions that LifeTrack is giving might not be the ones that we really care about and want to ask, and that the time that we're spending in class doing that survey might be better spent doing something else. So I don't want to, say that LifeTrack has been terrible, but could it be better? Maybe it could. Maybe we could do something that would be more engaging and get more of our alumni engaged in communications and being somehow relatable to high school seniors, as role models or career path models.
Yeah.
So I agree with some of that, and I definitely agree with engaging with our alumni in some other ways. Where I have kind of a different slightly point of view is with LifeTrack. It's, when we talk to them, because I was part of that discussion and that review, it really is a long-term strategy, and I think it's really tough because we want to really see those results overnight. But I would say, because we've invested in it, they had a good track record. They had good reviews. That was the reason we leaned into them in the first place. And so if we have to address maybe some of the operations of it, maybe we could discuss that and look into that, how we implement it, how we conduct survey questions. Is there stuff that we can customize ourselves to our own liking? But I really feel with systems like this, it really is like a 5-year strategy, and it's very easy to get into some of these systems and programs and want to pull the plug right away. And the fact that we've invested in it, I just think that we have to at least do the due diligence of making sure that you know, what we originally signed up for it for is still meeting that need, right? And the fact that we can maybe see that light in 5 years to get the responses. And especially if we're talking about quantitative data like this. We're trying to engage all the student bodies from the senior year and then try to get the most back in that 18-month and then 5-year mark. So with that said, I think that would be worthy of some discussion in an ad hoc, especially with the investment we put into it already. It's tough to just kind of throw that out the window right now.
You know, one of the aspects of the purpose of this survey was to get an opinion at different points in kids' lives. Well, future adults, like they just left school, then it's 18 months, then 5 years, to get the different lenses and viewpoints of what did the education provide for you from those perspectives, to kind of give us a guide. I don't want to let that be kind of overshadowed by anything else. It was a way to get a different perspective into the education that we provided. Ask them to look back and say, did it work for you with this lens? Then ultimately out to 5 years, that information I think is important to guide us in where we go with the education we're providing. Mm-hmm. And I almost think I can see kind of a divergence between the purpose of LifeTrack and then the purpose of engaging with alumni. I think we always should be engaging with alumni, whether it's sports, whether it's whatever alumni. They're the citizens that we created. They can provide us opportunities. To get them to remember Massena might bring economic opportunity to Massena. Many of them have left. We export many of them. Mm-hmm. They're gone, off to do great things elsewhere. Maybe by engaging them, it might spark some interest to know what resources we have here that might change the economics here. Or just bring about a great example of that could be presented to the next group of students. Mm-hmm. All of those things are extremely important. Mm-hmm.
And there might be some supplementation, you know, if we decide to keep LifeTrack, but I just think it begs further discussion, and I don't think it can just be the board. I think it has to be the high school principal. I think there are other stakeholders who should be engaged so that we have a better idea of how effective we're being. We are definitely 18 months out. I don't even know if we have any feedback, and who is the point person at our school that's taking that information, that's getting that information. I haven't seen anything printed from LifeTrack since we've been using it, and this is year 3. So I think it needs further exploration, in my opinion.
Or at least a hard audit.
So could we pull a group of stakeholders together, administration, maybe, you know, some of the
We had a guidance counselor last time.
Well, I think it would make sense to, you know, reconvene that ad hoc committee. The board has changed some. So I guess I would ask for any volunteers from the board just to let me know or say now, and who'd like to serve on that.
Well, I feel like I would want to be a part of that.
Well, Kevin?
How many are you looking for?
It'd probably at least be one initial meeting, and I think part of it is to understand how LifeTrack does work or doesn't work, what that process is, because there are processes, and you know we're getting better feedback each year from the students current, but again we're not getting the information from the students. They're not willing to share how to contact me 18 months from now or 5 years from now. That's where we're falling apart, and so you know even though those are going out to the kids or to the students that are giving that, it's not very many, and that's where LifeTrack is coming back. Hey, we don't have a whole lot of information about how to reach these students that are now 18 months gone. So that's where this is falling apart. It's again, we're getting better at our captive audience that's right here with us. We're just not getting information to do the futures.
I don't think young people have personal emails. I don't think they really check their emails. They do everything on their phone by text.
That's what I was going to say, is email's almost antiquated at this point.
is.
They use social media to communicate.
Absolutely.
So it's not
So-
that they're
So should it be a social media
refusing,
push?
right?
It can be, but we still need to know information from our students, right?
Yes.
And that's the information that we don't have. There has to be a way for Track to communicate
communicate with them.
directly to them.
Right.
And that's not what our students have been willing to share. Maybe there is something, maybe they are willing to share. Well, I doubt many of our students want to share their social media accounts and make us friends or whatever. But who knows? Maybe LifeTrack has something new. I haven't seen that come across. That hasn't been the case.
In the reviews where you have read, what did the other people do? How is it getting done in other places? You said they have excellent reviews. What are they doing to get this information in other places?
And that's a good question. So what we hear about is what the return rate is. But if you have 180 students graduate and 20 of them have given you your address for 5 years from now and 19 of those 20 responded, that's a fantastic return rate, except that your sample is so small. And I think that's really what we're facing. So, the Will Rogers statement about statistics, there are lies, there are darn lies, and there are statistics. So again, we're doing well, I think, we're doing better with our captive audience. It's just getting that future information out 18 and 60 months.
But it is concerning that you haven't heard, or at least you don't know if you've heard from
So-
LifeTrack.
Well, I do think, and I'll go back, I believe I shared the results from the second year of LifeTrack back in the summer. But I'll share those again. I'll try to pull those out this weekend, get that back to the board. They were very similar to our PLC results. I don't think you'll see, if you look one to the other, there were some things I think, Mr. Monroe, you brought up something in terms of knowing about their careers and how are we preparing students for, through guidance for kind of knowing what pathway they want to go in the career as being one of the items that was missed. So again, I think, it gave us a little bit, but maybe not enough. The other part with LifeTrack is we really do have a lot of control with the questions that get asked. They have canned questions, and through the result of our committee work, we took some of the canned questions, we altered some, and we made up some of our own. And I'm trying to recall if there's an opportunity for open-ended questions. I just don't recall if that's on there. But again, we do have a lot of control with that with LifeTrack.
So we got a couple of us that are willing to sit down and explore this a little bit further. So we'll endeavor to do that. Thanks for bringing that up, Trish. Mm-hmm. And are there any other items for future agendas that folks would like to get out there?
Yeah, I thought as Trustee Murphy was presenting on NISBA, and then I got this shocking third to last page, $6.7 billion growth in transportation aid. And so I'm thinking to myself, so we put it, whenever we purchase new buses, we put it as a proposition to the voters?
No.
We don't?
Not
Okay.
anymore.
Not anymore? Okay.
No, the district used to do that, but we've been for many years in the habit of just making the bus purchases part of the budget.
My guess is when we get to the point where we have to buy electric, that'd be a great idea to let the government downstate know what our locals think about it.
That's kind of where I was going with
Okay.
that. It's where I was going with that. I also didn't realize that it had been removed, but to Kevin's point, yeah, I think that number just stood out to me, and I've just been kind of stewing on
I think
it
it's
a
been
little
at
bit this
least,
meeting.
since well before Mr. Brady even, the bus purchases, I believe, before Mr. Brady, the bus purchases have just been put into the budget.
And the reason that we do that is we're in a unique position. Typically, many schools go out to bond for their buses, and anytime you do a bond, it has to be a voter approval. So we pay cash for our buses. We don't bond them. We avoid the interest charge. We're able to do that now. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future. Even with conventional diesel buses, we're approaching the $180,000, $185,000 mark per bus. When we start buying 3 and 4 of those a year to maintain our fleet schedule, that's going to become a little bit more of a challenge. We may be looking at doing the bonding. We still get the same reimbursement rate on that. It's transportation aid. I will be sharing with the board over the next week or two more information about electric buses. As you know, because of our contract with the State Education Department for the education of Indigenous students, part of that is transportation. Historically, New York State Education Department provides us with buses. Those are the buses that say State Education Department on the side. Those are buses that are truly owned by the state of New York. We're able to operate, we can only operate those buses going out to the territory. As you can imagine, with the electric bus mandate and the very limited responses of districts at this point, there is a greater push coming from Albany to get engaged with electric buses. Had a conversation today. I've been advised I needed to have a conversation with State Ed as it relates to electric buses for our Native students. We engaged in a conversation earlier today, understanding all of my concerns, understanding all of my no's, why I don't think it's going to work, why, given concerns that have been very publicly addressed since prior to the holidays of a neighboring school that dealt with some of our Native American students. Why would I dare think about putting Native American students, any students, on a bus that's not going to have heat halfway back? I've expressed all of those items. I have been advised to very carefully consider this proposal, this request, so much so that we'll have a follow-up meeting. I did offer some ideas that might make it work if in fact I don't have to limit those buses to particular routes. What basically is happening is state education has access to a number of free electric buses, including the charging stations, in lieu of not being able to get a diesel bus provided by the state of New York. So that's really about all I can say at this point. Again, I'm just letting you know that I'm having conversations at that state level. And I know the next question is, does the board have to approve that acceptance of what might be considered a donation from State Education Department for an electric bus? I will be looking into that.
We never had to accept the donation of the other buses, correct?
That is 100% correct. If you have ever heard
But
of
are we
it,
allowed to have a resolution rejecting it? Out of hand, that it's a terrible experiment at the expense of the farthest bus run that we have, knowing that they've pretty much failed everywhere else that they've been used on some shorter runs. So why in the hell would we even attempt this? Why would they even suggest it? None of it's been well thought out, and this is about the worst idea I think I've ever heard.
And quite frankly, I'm curious because, I'm a little frustrated with NISBA too, because they do some really great things, but I feel like a lot of their cohort in our association is of similar, purview, and I think that they should really be jumping up and down and saying this, what Senator Steck has going with his repeal is probably a good push, but I read the emails, I see everything coming across, like I feel this should be at the forefront over and over and over again until it gets something. We're talking about a lot of money, a lot of infrastructure in bus runs that aren't feasible.
Well, how long would it take us to even have a charging station ready? What would be the impact to MED? What would be the impact to the allotable power that MED has? I mean, there's so many questions to this that has such an impact on the local front. To get this gift from the state.
So I was asked yesterday to prepare my questions so that they could be prepared to answer or my concerns. Every one of those statements you just made were in my email. I don't have a firm answer on any of this, and I'll be honest, and I would ask that the board not do a knee-jerk reaction tonight by a resolution.
Okay.
I will.
One would hope that there's some press generated with this, and maybe we'll hear from our neighbors to the east about what they think about it.
I did share a link to the story about a neighboring school that we all saw in the paper and on the Channel 7 News, and that has raised concerns in Albany. And when I'm saying that, I don't think it's raised concerns about this as a bad law. I think it has raised concerns like, is that information accurate? Is it factual? Is it yellow journalism? I do not want Albany to know about Massena. I don't want them to be thinking about Massena. I don't want them to be thinking about Massena Central School. I want to stay off everybody's radar. So I would ask that we just exercise great caution on this issue. Let our legislature fight this out over the next few weeks to see if there's going to be any change to the law. I do think it's important that you understand I am in conversations with some of the highest people in the state education department, remembering, and I did temper my words today very carefully, knowing full well that these folks also work for higher powers, and this is how politics works. And this conversation was supposed to have happened over a year ago. We actually entered into a grant application with other schools, 7 other schools that serve Indigenous students. Luckily, we didn't get it. But now you couldn't get an electric bus, but now apparently people don't want the electric buses, and these companies have access. And we, in fact, I even had a meeting earlier this week with Mr. Room, our transportation director, with an entirely different company outside of state education department, and they have, I believe it's 10 EPA-funded buses that whatever school or schools they were going to said, no, we don't want them anymore. And now they're trying to figure out how to, and they don't actually have possession, but they've got the money, and they want to spend, this company wants to spend that money to fulfill the grant.
This is really this is when physics and science are trumped by economics and social needs or wants that don't follow suit with economics or supply demand or the markets. And that's why there's plenty of them laying around for anyone to give away, because no one really wants them. If they worked, everyone would want them. And I'm not, down the road, we'll all get a ride on an electric bus down the road, but until it's mainstream, I don't see the need to experiment with our kids.
Or our taxpayers.
Well, that's the other big burden. I don't know who's paying. That's going to be a massive impact.
And the whole reason I brought this up is because I feel like I'm having a conversation every week with somebody about their electric bill or their energy, right? And it's discussed with our town and in our village. And so, the buck kind of stops with us once we're mandated to have these buses. And that's great that our legislators gonna try to do everything to be our voice and try to change everything. But at the end of the day, when it doesn't change, guess who that liability now falls on when this project doesn't work? It falls on us.
They found the most expensive way to generate energy is what they've done, and it doesn't solve anything. It's the least dense source of energy to go to solar and wind. Should be going to nuclear. Economics and science would drive it that way, but politics has pushed it a different direction.
Mr. Monroe, you're going to force me into a little bit of a soapbox in preparation for tomorrow's legislative session. Okay?
Thanks.
So please look at the NYSBA position papers. And I think Trish heard me all the way back from Lake Placid. Folks, we're talking a 1% minimum foundation aid formula for over 460 of the 700 school districts in the state of New York. What is our rate of inflation? Just rate of inflation, not even including rate of healthcare inflation. 1% doesn't cut it. We're at 1.7%. That doesn't cut it. We're in a different position than many of our neighboring districts. We have reserves, we have fund balance. We can absorb this 1.8%. That is not the case. I cannot understand for the life of me why the New York State School Boards Association, the New York State Council of Superintendents, SANES, NYSET, everybody and parents aren't screaming about 1% foundation aid for over half of our school districts in the state of New York. This is not adequate. We sure as heck can't afford a bus at $500,000 that we can't undercoat, that we're supposed to pay for in 12 years when a bus lasts 7 in the North Country with salt corrosion. This does not work. We need to be yelling a whole lot louder than what we're yelling. $1.5 billion just went to New York City on a whim. Where is more than 1%? We can't afford this. Again, we're going to weather the storm, and I know Mr. Becksted's going to report it, and I'm going to regret saying this when I get the call from Albany, but darn it, it's got to be done. And I said the same thing at Chiefs yesterday. We've got to stop beating around the bush. We can't say, well, gee, I'm glad we got 1 and not 0. This isn't the way we can educate our kids. And now we're going to have a mandate 1 year from now about educating every child with pre-K that wants a space. And damn, if you don't have the space, you got to figure it out. We are putting ourselves on the cliff of financial ruin with some of these policies without the funding. If you have it within you to reach out to your legislators beyond tomorrow, and please reach across the aisle. We need to reach both sides of the aisle. Our downstate counterparts are being affected just as much as we are. 1% isn't North Country. It's not north of the Thruway. It's the entire state. There are so many schools. Again, over 460 schools at 1%. It's not sustainable. And again, there seems to be money for other things.
What's the estimated cost of an electric bus?
If you want the
just general.
Somewhere between $375,000 and up to $500,000, depending on the range that you select.
So it's a 2 to 4% tax increase in Massena just to buy one bus. So realistically, for a taxpayer to understand
one bus is about 3%.
If we raise taxes, and we have not raised taxes, and we raise taxes every year, we haven't increased the tax rate in a number of years. It would be, to buy one bus, it'd be a 3 to 4% tax increase to buy one electric bus.
With a 2% tax cap.
So just put that in perspective.
Which will become a common trend across many schools, and then many schools will be not defunct, well, maybe defunct, but I mean, there'll be school budget votes that just get turned down left and right. Once they're in it. Thanks, Mr. Burke.
Okay, now I'll go home and I'll take my blood pressure medication and be ready for tomorrow.
Well, we do have an opportunity tomorrow to raise the banner for trying to get something done with this crazy mandate. Oh, well, that's your workplace, so. Okay. Any other items for future agendas? Hearing none, I don't think we have anyone here, or do we, that would like to have a moment with the board? Okay. And with all of that said, I would call for a motion for adjournment. All in favor? Thank you.